All right, folks, so this one has been a long time coming. This is the brand new Forerunner 945 LTE from Garmin. Now, this isn't just an original 945 where they taped LTE onto the outside of it. This is actually quite a different device. It comes in a smaller case size. There's two different color options. It also has different internals and a processor, and it also comes with Garmin's latest 4th generation Elevate heart rate sensor. And this isn't the only new watch that Garmin came out today. They also came out with the Forerunner 55, which splits the difference between the entry-level Forerunner 55 and the mid-level Forerunner 245. So once you're done over here, go ahead and check out that video, which I'll have linked down in the description below. So let's just go ahead and get right into it and talk about this LTE. So the Forerunner 945, it's a sports watch that's aimed at endurance athletes, so it's an interesting decision to put LTE into this sort of device. And this is the reason why it's so interesting. The LTE features that Garmin built into the 945 LTE are based on the safety and tracking features like we've seen before, like Get Assistance and Live Track, but now you don't have to bring your phone with you to benefit from those features. But not only that, Garmin's also rolling out a new feature/service called Assistance Plus, which can connect you to emergency services. So in today's video, I'll be going over all the new LTE capabilities with the 945 LTE, as well as their limitations, because there are some that you need to be aware of. But just like all my reviews, I'll also be going over how the 945 LTE performed in a sports and fitness capacity, where I go over heart rate, GPS, as well as altimeter accuracy. And if the information in this video does help you out at all, don't be shy about hitting that like button down below. It's a small little thing that you can do that'll help this video and the channel out a lot, and I appreciate it. So on the surface, they didn't really diverge much in terms of design, where it looks similar to the original 945. However, Garmin shrunk the size of the 945 LTE, and it's actually a little bit closer in size to the 745 than the original 945. The 945 is already a very comfortable watch since it was so lightweight, but I found the 745 to be a bit more comfortable since it was a little bit smaller, and the 945 LTE has been really nice to wear over the last few weeks that I've been testing it. Both the 945 and the 945 LTE have a 1.2-inch display with a 240 by 240 pixel resolution, and it's protected by Gorilla Glass DX. But because of that reduced case size, the bezel is a lot smaller on the 945 LTE, and it just looks a lot more clean now, where the original 945 bezel stands out a bit more. But there's also some changes under the covers. The 945 LTE has new internals as well as a new processor, and they took advantage of that new processor with smoother animations throughout the interface. With some of the widgets, you'll notice these really smooth animations like the calories widget here, and even scrolling through the details of an activity page, the page-to-page animations are nice and smooth. The other big change is the new 4th generation Elevate heart rate sensor that was first introduced with the Venue 2. It's definitely the most accurate Elevate heart rate sensor that I've tested so far, and I'll get into the details of the heart rate accuracy here in just one bit. But the 945 still comes with all the features found in the original 945, like full-blown maps, offline music storage and playback using Spotify, Pandora, Deezer, and Amazon Music. It can pair to an enormous list of external sensors like heart rate sensors, power meters, vario radar and lights, temperature sensors, basically everything. And it also comes with the entire suite of first beat training and recovery feedback features like VO2 max for running, VO2 max for cycling if you use it with a cycling power meter, lactate threshold, a race predictor for common race distances, training status, VO2 max trends over the last 7 days, 4-week training load focus, which shows you which zones you've been focusing on, as well as which zones could use a little more love, 7-day training load, altitude and heat acclimation, and an improved recovery time advisor. And it also has the SpO2 sensor that's used for measuring blood oxygen saturation levels, which I found to be pretty close to a medical grade fingertip sensor. And it also comes with Garmin's advanced sleep tracking, and they've made some big improvements with this lately, and I found it to be pretty spot on. Battery life on the 945 LTE is actually very similar to the original 945, where you'll be able to get up to 2 weeks in smartwatch mode if you're not recording any outdoor activities. And then for recording outdoor activities using GPS plus heart rate, it's actually very similar as well, where you'll be able to get up to 35 hours out of the 945 LTE and up to 36 hours out of the original 945. And before I go over what kind of battery life you can expect while using LTE, I guess let's go ahead and talk about these LTE features in detail. So Garmin is not trying to replace your phone with the 945 LTE like other watches that have cellular connectivity. To be clear, this watch does not have text and call functionality like what you'd find out of a cellular Apple Watch. They chose to go in an entirely different direction since the 945 LTE is a watch that's aimed at endurance athletes. So those sort of athletes can now benefit from all those safety and tracking features like we've seen before without having to bring their phone with them. But not only that, they're rolling out 2 new features. So there's going to be live event sharing where people can actually follow along your event in real time. But not only that, they can send you text as well as voice messages that you can receive on your watch, all using LTE. But there's also that new Assistance Plus feature/service that I talked about earlier, which can put you into direct contact with emergency emergency services. So Garmin recently just acquired the IERCC, which is the International Emergency Response Coordination Center, which provides a lot of the services that you can get with the inReach satellite communication system. Now, just to be super clear, the 945 LTE uses a cellular connection, not satellite. So the Assistant Plus features are only available if you have a cellular connection. But what Garmin did here is that they're using that IERCC call center to provide a lot of the services that you'll get with Assistance Plus. So with the LTE features, you can kind of plop these into two buckets. So there's going to be the live tracking as well as live event sharing features, which are definitely the more fun features. And then there's the not so fun, but a lot more serious safety and tracking features, including Assistance Plus. So for the more fun things with Live Track, this is just like before, where you can send a link to contacts that you set up in Garmin Connect where they can follow along during your outdoor activity. They receive the link via email and they can check out the progress of your activity. Like here, Ray sent me a link of him riding around Amsterdam, and what's cool is that it even shows his speed, elevation, heart rate, power, and cadence. And all that stuff is being transmitted through LTE connection, which is pretty sweet. And I was also curious how this would do if I were in a location where I was going in and out of cells coverage. So it basically just informs the person viewing that there isn't currently a live connection. And as soon as I did get back in cell range, it updated everything. It was all good there. And there's also this send a message button, which is what Garmin's calling spectator messaging, where someone can send you a motivational message. Like here, somehow Ray thought there was a cougar behind me and sent me a message just to warn me, but thankfully it was just an antelope. And there's also this little button right here where someone can send you an audio message, but just note you have to be using a pair of Bluetooth headphones paired with a 945 LTE at that time for someone to be able to send you the message. And there's even one more thing, which is what Garmin's calling live event sharing. So what this does is allows you to set up automated text messages to people you choose from your contacts list that can inform them of when you start your event, different transitions during your event, messages that are triggered with every lap, a particular distance interval or time, as well as when you end your event. And this is all pretty neat and it worked very well for me. And you can use live track and live event sharing independently, or you can combine them. Like here, if you want to just send out just the live event sharing messages, but would rather not share your location via live track, you can do that. Or alternatively, you can turn live track on. So those are the more fun aspects of the LTE connectivity, but now let's get a little bit more serious and talk about the safety and tracking features. You've probably seen before where you can long press the upper left-hand button to request assistance from emergency contacts that you set up in Garmin Connect. Previously, that required you to have your phone with you, but now you can do that through the 945 LTE cellular connection. And this worked if you access this through the controls menu or keeping that button pressed down until it triggered the assistance request. And this request for assistance over LTE also works for incident detection, where you can choose to enable this for certain outdoor activities. So that's what we've seen before, but now you can just do that through the watch itself and not through your phone. But with Assistance Plus, this takes this quite a bit further. So Assistance Plus is a service that's included with your LTE subscription. So if you get the LTE subscription, you just automatically get this service, which I think is pretty great. How this works is that you can toggle this feature on and off as you wish. So even if you have the LTE subscription plan, you don't necessarily have to use this feature if you don't feel the need. And then when you enable this feature, the assistance option in the controls menu will change from Assistance to Assistance Plus, and it defaults to contacting the IERCC as the first option when you request assistance or with incident detection. And I will definitely circle back with some thoughts on that here in 1 second. And what you're seeing right now is a live demonstration that I did directly with the IERCC. So interacting with their team directly really hit home how important this feature can be in a real life emergency. So when you request assistance, it pops up a very bright red screen letting you know that the watch is about to contact emergency services. So if you're wearing the watch, it only gives you a 10-second countdown, but it does give a vibration on the wrist. However, if you're not wearing the watch, like in this clip, it gives a longer 30-second countdown along with a very loud audible alert. And the reason they give a longer time period to cancel the request as well as the audible alert when you're not wearing the watch is for situations like if you had it in a bag and the button were to be accidentally pressed down. And the reason that they don't do an audible alert while you're wearing the watch is in a situation where you may feel endangered by another individual and you don't want to alert that individual that you're requesting assistance. Anyhow, once the request goes through, what the IERCC will do is actually try to call you in the situation that you may be carrying your phone. So this service is even more beneficial if you're carrying your phone with you. But whether you're carrying your phone or not, they'll send you a message to the watch asking the nature of your emergency, and it took only about 20 to 30 seconds for the IERCC to send their first message. It was very quick. And what you can do at this point is choose from a predefined list of common responses that can be used in these sort of emergency situations, including a message to let them know that you're no longer in need of assistance. But if none of those responses fit your needs, you can also use the on-screen keyboard to type out a custom message. And one more thing with requesting Assistance Plus is that if you have emergency contacts set up in those safety and tracking settings, the IERCC will actually try to contact them in certain situations. It's not in every situation that they'll do this, but they'll essentially use their discretion to see if contacting your emergency contacts is appropriate in that sort of situation. But if everything turns out okay and you don't need assistance from your emergency services, you can end the assistance request by pressing the upper right-hand key. And I can't reiterate enough that the Assistance Plus feature is very serious, and it definitely is not something that should be just played around with. These are real people dealing with real life emergencies, so this feature does deserve a lot of respect. Where this gets interesting is with incident detection. So incident detection, it's a great feature, but there simply can be some false positives. But what's nice though is that with incident detection, they give you a 30-second countdown versus the 10-second countdown when you manually request assistance while you're wearing the watch. And I have to imagine on some rare occasions, there's going to be some false positives with incident detection, but Garmin has chosen to use Assistance Plus as the default method for incident detection, which is by far the safest course of action. Garmin's definitely just saying that they're confident enough in incident detection as well as that 30-second timeout to give some wiggle room for those false positives. And a couple last notes about this LTE connectivity is that this is standalone LTE connectivity from the watch itself, and it does not rely on your smartphone's cell phone carrier. However, if you actually have your smartphone with you, the 945 LTE will try to piggyback off your phone's cellular connectivity just to save on battery life. Most of these safety and tracking features will work even if you don't have that LTE subscription. However, there are two big ones that do require the subscription: the Assistance Plus feature as well as the spectator messaging. Those require the subscription. The LTE service costs about $6 a month, which I think is pretty reasonable. You can pay for it monthly or save a few bucks by going with a yearly plan. But what is great is that the Assistance Plus feature doesn't cost anything extra on top of that. That's just something that's included, which makes this, in my opinion, very reasonable, especially when compared to the price of in-reach satellite communication systems. But one more thing to keep in mind is that this is just putting you in contact with emergency services. So it's not like the in-reach satellite communication system services where you can actually do some add-ons which could potentially cover some of those emergency services like an ambulance ride. This is again just putting you in contact with those services. So with the LTE capabilities of the 945 LTE, these do rely on cell phone coverage, so you will need to be within cell phone range to be able to benefit from these services. So if you are planning on going out into the wilderness, like way out in the nowhere where there's no cell coverage, I would definitely consider still using an in-reach satellite communication system. And then when it comes to the battery life while using these LTE features while tracking outdoor activity, they claim it's up to 7 hours while using LTE as well as music plus GPS, and I found that to be pretty spot on. And then for battery life using the standalone LTE without playing music, on this hour and 20-minute bike ride, it used 15% of the battery. And if we do the math, it was using about 11.25% of the battery per hour, which means you could potentially get a little under 9 hours out of it if you weren't using music playback. Oh, and one more thing is that it can actually automatically sync activities over to Garmin Connect using that LTE connection. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Okay, so that was a lot of info, but we haven't even gotten to the sports and fitness performance of this device. So we'll be going over GPS, heart rate, as well as altimeter accuracy. For GPS accuracy, I didn't have any issues with the 945 LTE. So on this run, the total distance lined up super nice with some other test devices. And on this longer road ride, it did just fine too. And it also did great on this mountain bike ride. All good stuff. For the finer details of the GPS tracks on this road ride, things were really tidy over the course of the ride, quite good. Right here where I went through the tunnel, it wasn't quite as precise as the other test devices to reacquire GPS, but still, it was not bad. But on these higher speed curves right here, it did a really nice job, actually much better than the device that's in green. And on this run here, from a high level, things look good, but there was a section right over here on the right side of the map where it did overshoot this curve just a little bit. Nothing crazy, but it did wander just a smidge. The altimeter accuracy was good for the most part. For most of my rides, the elevation data came out pretty close to other test devices, but there were a couple rides where the total ascent was a bit higher than some other devices. Nothing crazy, but definitely a bit higher when compared to Strava's elevation figure as well as those other devices. I did let Garmin know about this and they are aware of it, and they'll be cleaning this up in the future for a more release. And again, this only happened on a couple rides. For indoor running distance accuracy on a treadmill, the 945 LTE did exceptionally well here, being just 2/100ths of a mile off from the distance recorded on the treadmill. And if for some reason it is off, it allows you to calibrate the distance when you go to save your run. For heart rate performance, let's first start out with some indoor cycling. So on this ride, the 945 LTE was nearly perfect. There was a section right here where it's a little slow to respond in the drop in heart rate, but overall, there's really not much to complain about here. Taking it outdoors on this road ride, pretty good for the most part, but we see a few little hiccups in some spots, so there's a bit more variance with heart rate while riding outdoors just because there's stuff like vibrations and bumps in the road that can throw off an optical heart rate sensor. In fact, we can even see that with the Wahoo Ticker Fit optical arm heart rate sensor, which gets a little funky at the beginning. There was a spike right here, right around the middle of the ride, and it was a little slow to respond right here in the sudden drops in heart rate from the 945 LTE, but overall, other than that drop in heart rate right here, I think these were pretty usable results. For running, it was pretty good, but I did have one spike right here in the middle of this run. It was momentary, but it did get back in line rather quickly, and for the rest of the run, it was pretty decent. The 945 LTE also has this new intervals feature where all you have to do is just start running without loading in any workout or anything like that, and then you just press the lap key either when you stop or start an interval, and it breaks down these intervals automatically after your run. But you can also use the open repeats interval training mode where you can just warm up for as long as you want and then just go ahead and press the lap key when you start your first interval and on every subsequent interval. It's as simple as that, but it's a nice convenient way of breaking down this information so you can analyze it later. So the 945 LTE is an interesting device because of how Garmin leveraged the LTE connectivity for all those safety and tracking features, and they didn't try to make it a phone replacement. The LTE capabilities, they won't necessarily be for everyone, but I think what is nice is that the price of those services is cheap, like 2 cups of coffee a month cheap, and that's very reasonable for some additional peace of mind if you don't want to carry your phone with you for an outdoor workout. But what I really like about the 945 LTE is that it's not just the original 945 with LTE taped on here. It's actually a much different device with the smaller case, the 2 color options, the new processor internals, as well as that 4th generation elevated heart rate sensor. Anyhow, if you liked the video, if you found the information in this video useful, make sure to hit that like button down below and also subscribe to the channel for plenty more sports tech videos just like this. In the meantime, happy running, and we will see you in the next video.